this is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barton. Today we got all kinds of news across the board. Today we'll be talking about Biden and this I guess it's still this ripple effect of Laken Riley and her being murdered by an illegal immigrant. Of course, Biden was heckled during the State of the Union and he got her name wrong, but then he called them illegal, and then people were angry that he called them illegal, and then he apologized, and now he plainly apologized. We'll watch the video, and now his people are saying no, he never apologized. So just all over the place with that. Also talking about the chaos in Haiti. Not good things are happening there. Also, I read this article today in the Intelligencer. I guess in the New Yorker, they also posted and stuff, but about how we should just argue that sex changes are moral for anyone who wants them, like they're a moral right, as opposed to how people argue about reproductive rights as far as like puberty blockers and all that stuff. Right now, it was I didn't think a very interesting piece, but it was kind of long, so I'm gonna just give you some highlights and some thoughts about that and where that's going. And I'm not surprised about that argument being made, and I assume that'll be the next big kind of push from these activists. We shall see. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys, go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation, blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream, run my website, all the stuff you guys can't support. I very much appreciate you. If you want to support via Facebook, you guys can send stars. On YouTube, you guys can do super chats. I do read super chats, as long as they're not like, I know, gross or something. Yeah, I'll read them. You guys can also do super thanks as well. Thank you to those who are watching live and those who are watching it back later. You guys can also look at different merch that we have available at blacktnews.com. And on the merchandise page, we got mugs and t-shirts and all kinds of goodies. So you guys can check those out, and also check out some of my books available. You can just search my name on Amazon, Christina Elbar, and you'll find some of my stuff. My nephew's reading my Super Kid book, and so he was waiting for some action, and he's like, oh, I think he's gonna fight this kid. And I'm like, yeah, there's gonna be a fight, because there's some bullies in there. So I'm glad that he's getting hyped for the action and stuff. So I'm like, other kids say it's epic, Daniel. So he's reading it, so I'm excited. Anyway, I know some of you have picked up Super Kid for yourself or your children or friends' kids or grandkids and so on. So I do appreciate that. I do have books for older readers as well. So some are mostly fiction, 2 are nonfiction. So someone said YouTube kicked me off their notifications. We'll have to do something about that. Thank you for letting me know, but we are live. Anyway, I have something humorous to mention before we get into more serious news of the day. So do you guys remember that kid who dressed in blackface at a sports game? It wasn't blackface. Half of his face was painted black, and at first this website Deadspin wrote an article bashing this kid, demanding that the NFL, I'm sorry, not the NFL, the NBA, was it the NBA? Yeah, NFL, sorry. The NFL, they wanted the NFL to speak out against this kid. This and it's a little boy. It's a little boy. So if you need a little reminder of that story, here's the kid's face. And so this was originally the story how they were coming at him. So of course the other side of his face was actually black and red, and he's trying to emulate the colors of, and it something else that was kind of more hilarious is this kid also has, is Native American. You could say, well, he doesn't have the right to wear that. The narrative just kind of kept evolving. The point is that he's just a kid. He's a fan of the game, enjoying himself, and a grown man decided to write an article demanding that the NFL make this kid like they just wanted him to speak out against a little boy, right? And then they ended up changing their language a bit in the article after they got called out a lot and threatened to be sued and so on. But anyway, I believe the family did talk about actually suing Deadspin. Well, I guess too Deadspin is kind of no more. They've been bought out, and I suppose, and from what I'm reading, uh everyone's been fired. There were no one is being retained. So they got sold to European owners, and all the employees are being fired. So that's kind of funny. It's not funny so much when people lose their jobs, but uh they did trash stuff, man. They did trash stuff. Kristen Hawkins pointed out one of these headlines earlier. White male athletes should kneel for abortion rights. It's not like they'd get blackballed. So that was one of their hot takes there at Deadspin. But the kid with the headdress was just, I've crazy. I've seen, I guess their headlines before, but I didn't follow them too much. But that headdress story with the kid that got blew up on the internet everywhere. So yeah, Kit Kat said it was shameful. Absolutely, it was shameful. Them coming at this kid for just supporting his team, and it wasn't calling it blackface. Blackface is very specific what it is, and what they were even complaining about wasn't uh, what was being done. And so when you throw that around with there's a historical reference there with the blackface, and to just kind of throw that around all the time, when a kid's just face painting to represent his team and not, mock black people or be caricatures of black people, that's you know um pretty ignorant, and makes me think you don't care nearly as much about the issue as you pretend. And it was a black guy who wrote it, so perhaps he's on the unemployment line today, or I don't know, people fail upwards in this business, so who knows, maybe he's already been snatched up by somebody else, or maybe he writes for multiple things. I don't know, but I just wanted to share that piece of news. um you know um can't say I'll be shedding any tears tonight, though. I can understand it sucks to lose your job. Um, anyway, before we get on to other news, I want to address that Haiti is collapsing, um, or has collapsed. Here's some images. The country's been abandoned by its leadership. There was a huge jailbreak, and the criminals are just in charge now. And the person who's apparently in charge of the chaos, his he's a cannibal, and his nickname is Barbecue. And it's just wild. it's just wild. It kind of seemed like Haiti was the haven of where, I don't know, people wanted to say, "Oh, we need to help Haiti. We're doing this, Clinton Foundation, etc." And I'm like, did you do anything to really, I don't know, stabilize it or help? Because this is, I'm not saying everything could have been in their control to change something like this, but um, it's just wild. I'm going to read a little bit of this Newsweek article. Um, but man, this is scary stuff. Heightened gang violence in the neighborhood of near the U.S. Embassy compounds and near the airport led to State Department decision to arrange for the departure of additional embassy personnel. The embassy base in Port-au-Prince said in a statement on Sunday the embassy remains open. The U.S. Um, had previously warned its citizens that they should depart Haiti as soon as possible by commercial or other privately available transportation options. Earlier this month, armed gangs orchestrated jailbreaks from Haiti's two largest prisons and demand. I got so many ads popping up on this article, it's crazy. Earlier this month, armed gangs orchestrated jailbreaks from Haiti's two largest prisons and demanded the resignation of the Caribbean's nation's Prime Minister Ariel Henry. The Haitian leader is not currently in the country and is petitioning the international community for a United Nations-backed security force to step in. More than 4,500 inmates have escaped, including senior gang leaders, the United Nations said last week, adding that the jailbreak was a result of coordinated gang action against national institutions. Haitian authorities extended a state of emergency and a curfew on Thursday as fierce battles for power continue to grip Port-au-Prince. The capital's international airport and main port are closed, and the country's national police, along with the other state apparatus, have teetered on the edge of collapse. Gangs have targeted and torched police stations, and in late January, Reuters reported that Haiti's national police had lost nearly 3,300 officers in around 3 years, citing trade union figures. Estimates suggest armed gangs control upward of 80% of the capital city. Since the start of 2024, just under 1,200 people have been killed and nearly 700 others injured in the gang violence, according to the UN. In 2023, almost 4,000 people were killed, another 3,000 kidnapped in the fighting. Haiti is on the cusp of even greater chaos and violence. Campaign group Human Rights Watch said on Friday the situation on the ground remains dire. At a CARICOM, a regional bloc that includes Haiti, the political and economic crisis is powering a looming humanitarian emergency. The health system is on the brink of collapse, the UN said in a statement. Hospitals often do not have the capacity to treat those arriving with gunshot wounds. Schools and businesses are closed, and children are increasingly used by gangs. Drinkable water is running out, and more than 313,000 people have been internally displaced, the UN said. If Ariel Henry doesn't resign, if the international community continues to support him, we'll be heading straight for the civil war and will lead to genocide. Influential Haitian gang leader Jimmy Cherzier, also known as Barbecue, said early last week. In the past week, political crisis in Haiti, combined with escalating violence and civil unrest, has created an untenable situation which threatens the country's citizens and security, U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said on Friday. So, that's crazy, man. That is crazy. Apparently, there was a video uh uh of somebody eating somebody, but I didn't see it. People were spreading around. It was taken down on Twitter by the time I saw it, and I don't want to see that. So hopefully they can get that country back together, take out some of these gangs who've taken over and restores to, well, I don't know how stable it was, but just get some kind of stability there. And any Americans that are there, hope they can get out safely. This reminds me of that movie with Owen Wilson. I can't remember what it was, but he was in some country and there was some kind of unrest that broke out, and they were going around just killing every American they could find. In the commercial, he had to like throw his daughter off of a rooftop. I saw the movie. He actually did like throw her off of a rooftop, like because they were trying to escape from that building to another building. It's a high intensity kind of movie, and it's just, you would never want to find yourself in that kind of situation, but you got to just be prepared wherever you go overseas, that I guess something crazy could potentially happen. Um, when I think about Nigeria is continuously being attacked and having some militant Muslim groups attacking Christians and other folks like that. There was another attack that had just happened, and thinking about how bad it is over there. My dad. It's been a long time since he went. I guess it's been like 20 years now. Gosh, so long ago. But he went there for a mission trip, and then he ended up going back in 2000 when my oldest sister graduated high school, and they were there for like a month, and just spreading the good word, spreading the gospel. And I'm not saying it wasn't dangerous back then. I guess I don't know how dangerous it was. I'm not really. I guess we were going to dangerous places anyway. It was dangerous when I went to the Philippines with my family, but just to know how bad it is pretty crazy. Like if you went overseas, like could you find yourself in some kind of situation where there's multiple jailbreaks and someone ate barbecue ends up as the leader? It's just insane. Um anyway, someone's saying check uh more into Haiti. I shall, but this is a crazy, 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 crazy situation. Um, moving on, before we get to the freedom of sex article, um, Joe Biden, and we talked about this on Friday, uh, which you're welcome. I watched the State of the Union. It wasn't fun, but he had the press secretary that had been asking her, like, is he gonna mention Laken Riley in the speech, which Laken Riley was killed by an illegal immigrant, and the press secretary just totally tried to flip it. She's like, well, I would just be remiss if I didn't mention that there was a bill that the Republicans didn't want to pass. I'm like, people are not going to go with this thing. Like some dumb people absolutely are like, oh, the Republicans, they don't actually want to solve the problem because they won't pass this particular bill. Republicans in the House have tried to push a bill before. But the Democrats don't want to go along with it, and they're not going to get enough votes in the Senate for it. But they do have a bill that is far firmer. But the truth is that Joe Biden, on his first day in office, he started rolling back things that Trump did. He could do Remain in Mexico and other things that could at least slow down the influx of people in there. Yes, they want to hire more border patrol agents, but they're basically going to be nannies, and they're just going to keep ushering and processing people faster into the country. That's what Joe Biden wants to do. Not like a mass deportation and stuff. And this person who killed this young woman shouldn't have been here and should have been deported, or at least arrested and or whatever. Anyway, so at the State of the Union, she ended up being mentioned after he was heckled. And I don't know if this was on paper that he was going to mention her, or if he was just responding to the reactions to the crowd. And yes, he was being heckled. And I said this on Friday, he got the energy that he gave. They matched his energy because he was very aggressive and like from jump, about this is a campaign speech, and I'm going to attack half the country now. Like that. And I'm going to attack the former president, and I'm going to be I'm the one who's saving the soul of the nation. You guys are the bad guys. Republicans are the bad guys. Trump is the bad guys. We're the Americans. You guys are the Nazis. We're defending democracy. You guys are Russia. Making all kinds of comparisons like that. That was the energy that he gave. I did not think it was appropriate at all for a State of the Union. It was one of the worst speeches that I saw with watching the State of the Union. I can't say I've seen seen a ton in my lifetime, but Trump always wanted to get reelected, but he would go out there and his speeches would be more, here's these accomplishments. America's doing great. Aspiration, inspirational, blah, blah, blah. Make you feel good, to the point where people calling me like, why do people hate Trump? When people watch Joe Biden State of the Union, it's like, oh, I understand why they don't like this angry old man yelling at clouds. But anyway, here's a reminder of that portion of the State of the Union when he literally said this young woman's name wrong.
Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals?
So he said Lincoln. That's not her name. And granted, it's kind of close. But in a situation like that, it's really not good to get that name wrong. Also, people were angry. Crazy people, anyway, were angry that he used the term illegal and not undocumented. And so I played for you guys on Friday Nancy Pelosi saying he shouldn't have said it that way. He should have said undocumented. And Ilhan Omar said something. Other Democrats tweeted out that he should have said, undocumented, and they shouldn't use this term illegal. It's just not PC nowadays. And they were upset about it. But Biden also apologized. So here's that apology.
I noticed the look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber and you saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock at seeing her. But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Lincoln Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing. We have to control the border and more orderly flow, but I don't share his view at all.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
Okay, so build the country how? Like immigrants, sure. We're a nation of immigrants who came up with amazing, innovative ideas and grew to really love their country. I was watching a Food That Made America a little bit yesterday, and they were Chef Boyardee, who became Chef Boyardee, who had to change his name because I guess it sounded too ethnic, and I thought that was silly. And then my sister came in and we were explaining the story, and she could not say his name. I'm like, okay, maybe you had a point, but because I'm like, they couldn't say his name, and then she couldn't really say his name after a few tries. So I was like, But he ended up changing his name so he could put his stuff on the shelves and so on. And he was an immigrant, but he was a proud American. And after when the War II started, they started hiring they needed like the tin and stuff for military stuff. And so he ended up making a deal with the US government. So they started doing like preparing food and stuff for the troops so he could have access to all the tin that he wanted. And so they ended up getting more people on board. So all of a sudden he had 3,000 with like 5,000 people. And so and then he wanted to make a deal with them anyway because he didn't want to lay them off. And then after the war, they had trouble readjusting because they weren't as busy, but they had all these people. And so he didn't want anyone to lose their jobs. So he ended up selling his company. He stayed on as like the mascot and everything. So I'm sure he still got his change, but he ended up, selling his company, I guess, to a bigger company that could accommodate all those jobs, because he didn't want anyone to be let go. So, just to really, at least from this documentary or whatever that was on the History Channel that we were watching the other day, I'm like, man, what a really good dude. I mean, there's amazing stories like that all over the place, but if you're talking about criminals who are coming over here, who are like the dregs of society, like who literally just murdered somebody, you don't have to be nice to people who shouldn't be here. You deport them. You deport them. You deport them. There's so many people who come over here legally and they have a huge issue with people who skip the line. They have a problem with people who skip the line, who don't respect our rules, don't respect our laws, then take advantage. And then they'll know, like, there was a panelist on CNN who covers these issues, was talking about how in New York, they'll go commit the crimes and like still make money and stuff. And then they'll go to Florida and hang out and be chill, and they won't commit crimes because they know in Florida, they'll lock people up. And then they'll go back to New York and do the crime again. So people need to get some sense about these issues. But anyway, I didn't want to get too far off track with that line there that Biden gave. You guys heard him apologize, right? He said, I should have said undocumented and undocumented. And he said he shouldn't have used those words. He regrets saying those words, right? So not exactly an I'm sorry, but it's definitely a walk back. So his spokespeople have decided to walk back the walking of the back.
His interview with Jonathan Capehart, President Biden apologized for calling Laken Riley's killer an illegal. Does he feel like he needs to apologize to illegal immigrants for calling them what they are, or using the term illegal?
First of all, I want to be really clear about something. The president absolutely did not apologize. There was no apology anywhere in that conversation. He did not apologize. He used a different word. I think what we should be really clear about is the facts. So, in addition to the fact that the president did not apologize, I want to make another thing clear. The president spoke directly to this in the State of the Union address not 4 nights ago, when he spoke passionately about knowing what it means to lose a child, and extended his deep grief and condolences to Laken Riley's family in front of the entire country in the House chamber. And beyond that, I think it's unconscionable that there are some people who are playing politics with this young woman's tragic murder, and particularly at a time when, let's not forget, House Republicans are standing in the way of a bipartisan border security agreement that is the toughest bill we have ever seen in history, and they're doing so because Donald Trump feels that the American people's safety is less important than his personal politics. That's the fact.
So, again, you guys just heard the clip. You guys just heard the clip, and you just heard the spokesperson. Now, the spokesperson said there was no apology. And again, there was no I'm sorry. But he did say regret, did he not? And he did say that he should have used a different word. So I'm gonna, I don't know, put that in the apology column. I mean, he didn't get on his knees and ask the forgiveness of the man who killed that young woman, but why try to walk that back? We heard what we heard. But the reason why they don't care about, walking things back all the time or just denying things, that wasn't a walk back. That was just a denial of reality, right? Because they think we're stupid. They just don't care about the truth. They don't care about the truth. And that's just the truth about Biden. They don't care about the truth. They're going to say what they're going to say, and they just expect people to swallow it because orange man bad and I'm the other option. That's Biden's MO. The honesty doesn't matter. And hearing her talk about, her going through those different excuses or whatever, to how she tried to pivot and blame, say, oh, I think it's wrong for people to use this as political, and people use all sorts of things for political jump starts to advance their agenda. But parents don't want their children to be killed needlessly by people who shouldn't be in the country. So at some point, someone has to talk about it. And the president did a crappy job at the State of the Union. And she mentioned, how he lost a child, which he brings up all the time, for to score political points. And it sounds terrible to say that, but that's what Biden does. So now they're piggybacking off of that as well. But again, if Biden wanted to do something about the border, he could always undo the things that Trump did, that he undid as soon as he got in office. And then there are other bills on the table that they don't want to touch and deal with because they're too strict. They just want more people to process people faster into the country. So why not just say that no, we don't want to use the word illegal, and he regrets using that word. Why not just say that instead of lying to all of us and saying that he didn't apologize? It could literally be that simple. It could be that simple, but it's not, because these people love their lies. They love their lies. Anyway, moving on here. Interesting article today that I came across, and it's kind of interesting. I want to show you this tweet and what's under the tweet before we actually get to some segments of the article. But Andrea wrote this article here. I wrote about what justice looks like for trans kids, freedom of sex. And in the bottom here, you can see, maybe you guys can't see, so I'll read it. Speaking of which, my sweet friend Theo is having painful complications from their surgery last year and urgently needs a revision. Please help out if you can. So this person writes an article about the ethics of the freedom of sex and how they need to rearrange how they talk about trans issues and stuff, and just argue that people have a right to freedom, whether they regret it or not. They should just have the freedom to do it. And by the way, my friend who went through this thing is really having some issues. Can you lend a couple dollars? Can you lend a couple dollars? So some warning bells there. So it was I guess it's an interesting topic. I don't think it was a particularly thought provoking argument or particularly smart. I think it's maybe interesting that they're just they argue like, hey, how we're talking about this issue is just kind of wrong, because people are like assuming like the folks who are really against this issue are the religious right and also TERFs, like trans exclusionary radical feminists. Sometimes I get called a TERF and I'm like, no. I'm not a feminist. So don't call me a TERF. But she says that, well, actually, I don't know what this person is. But they say that another category is just liberals, and like they're agnostic about the topic, or they don't understand it, or they see kids being harmed, and they believe in liberty and freedom and all that stuff, but they kind of see what's going on and they don't like it. So there's like more than just the folks maybe they don't like or have an issue with, like the TERFs or the religious right. There's other folks who are usually maybe on their side, but they're just not in their camp with this particular issue. And she brought up Abigail Schreier book, Irreversible Damage, and even the study that she based a lot of reporting and stuff on, or and tried to I didn't think thoroughly dismissed the she said it was a sham. She said the reasons being that the reporting of the Lisa Littman study was by parents, and where they sought out the parents to have those conversations, excuse a bias, but if you got it from the kids, I'm sure they'd have a bias too. I thought it was interesting hearing from the parents their perspectives on the trans stuff, because I mean, I have the book, and in the book there's parents talking about these issues who are left leaning. It's not like they're right people on the right who woke up and their kids were trans all of a sudden because they went to college. It's people who are friendly to that community, and they're just like, this doesn't seem like it fits with my child, and they were concerned about the kind of rabbit holes that they were going down. And so this person complains about how people will either view like root the need for the transition in like gender dysphoria, or people who's like caught up in the hype of the social contagion. And this person doesn't like those arguments, and they make an argument that people should be able to change their sex if they want to change their sex, period. Like there's a moral right for people to just do that, whether they come to regret it or not. That's just a part of life. You have the freedom to do different things, and the truth is that you may end up regretting some of the stuff that you end up doing, but you need to have the freedom to explore and do those things. And I believe she said like any age, any people of all ages, etc. There was a line that they had in here. It's a long article, so I'm not going to read it all to you guys. I'm just trying to go through some of the highlights. But that if you think that someone is too young to block their puberty, then they're too young to like go through puberty. And which really highlights the issue with these sorts of arguments and stuff, because the whole time, because they're talking, it's just a natural thing that's happening to you. It's just kind of like, so it's about a hatred for your natural body. And a lot of the stuff on the left is about that. You know, there's such a hatred that people kind of talk about the natural things going on with a woman's reproductive system, as far as like when pregnancy, and they feel that they have to have the right to have an abortion, or else you're taking away a right from them. You're taking away their equality. They can't be equal to men, because men can have a say over kind of their reproduction in that kind of sense, as a woman doesn't, because she has to carry the child and stuff. These are what our bodies are just kind of naturally ordered to do. So if you really think that you need something like abortion to be an equal to a man, then you inherently don't believe that men and women are naturally equal to each other. Right? So so there's a natural kind of hatred for at our bodies and what we do, and our babies, and it's very strange. But the same, and I've made these comparisons before, that it's kind of sounds similar to these people who are like, oh, you're forcing me to have a baby. Like, no one's forcing you to have a baby. That's just a natural thing that happened after you had sex. But they're like, you're forcing me to go through puberty. No, that's just a natural thing that your body does as you grow up, man. You know, you don't like it. Oh, there's a lot of things in life we don't like. You know, some people can eat a lot and not gain too much weight, and other people, my dad says, he could look at a cookie and it was just blow up or whatever. And it's a funny joke when he tells it or whatever. But you know, there's a lot of things we don't like in life. But this person argues that, well, there's folks who can get different drugs to for like menopause or whatever, like estrogen and other stuff like that, to correct things about their sex. So how come other people can't do that, have access to those things if they want them as well? And they're trying to say that this idea that we have of gender identity, like that's not the thing we should focus on. We should focus on the right to have the freedom of sex. But how they're describing the freedom of sex still just kind of sounds like gender. I mean, they're still like connecting with biological stuff because you're changing biological things to your body. But you still can't change your sex. I mean, you can chop off your stuff and rearrange whatever, or try to. You can go ahead and pump yourself full of hormones, but you still can't change your sex. Still can't change your sex. You can do a convincing job, especially if you do it really early, but you still can't change that part of your body, of who you are. You know? So I thought it was strange, because if you're saying that gender is a construct of like how we socially act and what we wear and other things like that, and the sex is just like, I don't know, the physical, there's an outward appearance that men and women have based on our biology. And again, you can do surgeries and take drugs that'll make you mimic one or the other, but at the end of the day, you may look like a very convincing woman, but that doesn't still make you a woman as far as your sex. There's two sexes, there's the male and there's the female, and you know, there's the sperm and there's the ova, and there's no spurgs or whatever. It is what it is. So they're still trying to create kind of a category there of sex that's not sex, but somewhere in between gender and sex, how the activists kind of portray it. So again, it was a long article, and I don't want to talk about it unless I read it. I mean, I thought that the tweet about it was kind of funny, but I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs toward the end. So, okay. What if we make freedom into the air we breathe, we together breathe? Butler asks at the end, and this is Judith Butler she's talking about, asks at the end of Who's Afraid of Gender? It is a beautiful thought. It would not mean the abolition of social norms, an impossible task, but rather collective reimagining of them through alliances forged across many differences. Butler argues that the struggle for trans rights cannot be merely cultural, but instead must be connected to the fight for the basic rights for housing, food, non-toxic environments, unpayable debt, and healthcare. They are entirely right, but their principled commitment to coalition building can lead them toward a needlessly conciliatory position. It is hardly clear, for instance, that trans rights to self-determination take no one else's rights away. This may be technically true if one means trans people can be granted social recognition and a legal equality without spoiling anyone else's claim to the same. But if sex really is a biological resource, then there can be no remaking of the division of sex without real material losses. This would be like saying that socialism does not take away the rights of the wealthy. Such is a limitation of a social analysis like Butler's. It imagines the anti-trans movement as consisting primarily of religious zealots and scheming politicians, and does not consider that many might have a material interest in opposing what we should rightly call the redistribution of sex. We need a stronger demand. Butler argues that it would be counterproductive and wrong to chalk up the existence of oppressive systems to biology. But why? I am of the opinion that any comprehensive movement for trans rights must be able to make political demands at the level of biology itself. This is an old radical feminist idea, most famously found in Shulamith Firestone's 1970 classic, The Dialect of Sex. Suppose women's oppression really is a product of their biology, Firestone wrote. What follows? Only that feminists must work to change biological reality. The genius of this gambit was to refuse the idea that biological facts had some kind of intrinsic moral value that society or cultural facts did not. Biology could not justify the exploitation of human beings. Indeed, it could not even justify biology, which was just as capable of perpetuating injustice as any society. When Firestone wrote of women as sex class, she, unlike the TERFs who followed her, had in mind the Marxist dream of a classist society, something that could be achieved only by freeing humanity of the tyranny of biology. That's very interesting, don't you think? When I read that, I thought about many conversations that we've had here about this topic and gender ideology, and what it really comes down to is a refusal to accept that there is truth. And I brought up Yuri something, can't remember his last name, but he was a man who defected from the KGB. And gosh, this interview was like in the 80s or something. And he was like, basically, it's too late because they've already corrupted the institutions and we've demoralized society. So since that was so long ago and things didn't get any better, it's very Yuri Bezmenov. I think someone put in the comments. But anyway, it's very disturbing. I don't know how we could turn this clock back, but he's talking about once you demoralize a society, it doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter what right and wrong is. Like you could tell someone something, show it to them, and they like evidence right in their face, and they still won't accept that if the society is that demoralized. And that's what I feel is what we basically kind of are at this point with so many people. They've been demoralized to a point where truth doesn't matter, facts don't matter at all. It doesn't matter if a boy can't become a girl. If they feel like it, we're just going to go with the flow of that. And so it's interesting in this article they bring up that this feminist was talking about like the dream of a Marxist classist society, and you have to free it of the tyranny of its biology and other things like that. So I just thought that was interesting to find that there in this article. For her, this meant revolutionary ecological program of fertility control, artificial reproduction, and the full automation of labor. That may sound unrealistic, but this is the point. Justice is always an attempt to change reality. Interesting. Interesting. Would you guys define justice as an attempt to change reality? I wouldn't I guess I wouldn't define it that way. I mean, I think moral goods are I think morality is a true moral intuitions are something that we naturally know in our world, yet we suppress the truth. Like in the Bible, it says that the law is written on our hearts. But but we do suppress the truth and stuff. So I think you can kind of observe that, and like there's obvious things and there's things that we just kind of try to deny. So I think justice is just trying to bring to light the obvious things about our reality and to tame our the evil in our world is an obvious thing in our reality as well, and the need to suppress those immoral intuitions is important. And if you don't do that yourself and self-correct, then you need the law to come in and to do that, especially if you are violating someone else's rights. Katrina had a good answer to the to that. Oh my gosh, I think I lost my place. Because I turned my phone about justice being justice is always an attempt to change reality, Katrina said. Only if you were an agent in the Matrix. That's a pretty good line. Anyway, sex is real, so is global warming. To believe in their reality is an indispensable precondition for making normative claims about them, as we know from climate activism. But the belief that we have a moral duty to accept reality just because it is real is, I think, a fine definition of nihilism. What trans kids are saying is this: the right to change sex that has been enjoyed for decades by their parents, friends, teachers, coaches, doctors, and representatives, especially if those people are white and affluent, this right belongs to them too. We should understand this right as flowing not from the evangelist allegiance to the existing social order of the perpetual verge of collapse, but from a broader idea of biological justice, from which there justice this, justice that, biological justice, from which there also flows the right to abortion, the right to nutrients, food, and clean water, and crucially, the right to health care. I am speaking here as a universal birthright, the freedom of sex. I know everybody who watches this might not be from the US, and I know in like other countries they'll have a right to health care and stuff. We don't have a right to health care. That implies a lot of things. Like what do you mean? Like, is there a right to someone else's labor, someone else's product that they produce, because that would be their property, and so on. So it implies that there's some kind of need that some kind of thing that you need, that someone has to give to you, that you are owed like a moral right to the something else that someone has to supply to you. So there's positive and negative rights, but there's rights and there's privileges, and we view healthcare more as a privilege in this country. I think a right to healthcare, if we're going to say that someone had a right to healthcare, it would be kind of more like you have the right to pursue medical things that were going to save your life, that like the right to pursue life-saving measures, I guess, is the how I would view healthcare, if you're going to argue that we had that right, like a right to try, like or whatever, something like that. But yeah, you don't have the right to healthcare. Who's like, does that mean like people have doctors don't need to get paid or something? Like, of course we want doctors and nurses and other people to get paid. So in our rights, I definitely don't believe you have a right to an abortion, a right to you don't have a right to violently aggress upon someone. So that's what an abortion is. But it's interesting. It's like you don't have a right to, they believe you have a right to abortion, but they believe you have the right to nutritious food and clean water. But they'll argue that the babies can be aborted because no one has a right to use your body. But do we not have a right to, your baby doesn't have a right to time and space to grow in the womb that you place them in, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I'm speaking here from a universal birthright, the freedom of sex. This freedom consists of two principal rights: the right to change one's biological sex without appealing to gender, and the right to assume a gender that is not determined by one's sexual biology. And they're asking for a right here that just doesn't exist, that no one can grant, that you cannot seek yourself. Like you could say you have a right to sex, or you have or what they mean is to seek to change your gender or whatever, but it's an impossible thing to pursue. How do you have a right to something that's impossible? How do you have a right to something that's impossible? And that's really the big thing here. Like we talked about people suppressing truth. Like if people wanted to do cosmetic surgery and become like Dragon Man or get Botox and breast implants and all sorts of different things. Like, maybe you could argue that people should be able to do that at a reasonable age because it's their body, whatever. If someone wants to pay to do it, and you can have regulations on it or whatever. You could argue that, but just like kids you can't get tattoos or whatever before you're 18. You definitely shouldn't be doing sexual things like that, changing your body in that kind of manner, especially if you can't get things like tattoos. You can't get your ear pierced without an adult, with your parent or guardian. If you go to like Claire's at the mall, there's going to be like, no, where's your mom? you if you're a kid. So but people want more than just changing their body. They want to be acknowledged as if they're a different person, different names, and you accepting their pronouns, and you treating them as if they're a woman, treating them as if they're a man. And this person believes that they should be able to play on what sports they want to, and go to what bathroom they want to, and other things like that. And so it's beyond just people having the right to alter their body in whatever form they would like. It's the issue here is that it's all centered around a gigantic lie, that people are seeking after something that is absolutely unobtainable for them. I keep saying they keep chasing that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that they're never going to get. So that's the problem here. And doctors who cut up people in the pursuit of trying to change their sex or change their gender, it's incredibly immoral, because you can't meet that end. It's like Matt Walsh making that story Johnny Walrus about the kid who says they're a walrus. That book is actually poking fun more at the parents who are kind of pressured into believing the kids, nonsense or whatever. But like, if someone believed that they were a walrus or cat or whatever, and or let's just say someone said they're black. If people said that, if Rachel Dolezal says she's black, how come we don't, as a society, go along with what she says? And when I say things like that, people are like, how dare you? It's totally not the same thing. It's not the same thing. But her believing she's black is far more reasonable than Leah Thomas believing he's a woman. That is far less of a stretch, bruh. That's far less of a stretch. And maybe we as a society will get to the point where we'll be like, you know what, Rachel had a point. She was ahead of her time. She was ahead of her time. Maybe we'll get there. But one thing this, as of right now, they find should just be socially irreprehensible because of racial dynamics and how the oppression Olympics works, etc., that you can't just be a white woman and suddenly obtain blackness. But that seems far more feasible than a dude being able to all of a sudden be just go up a couple rungs on the totem pole because he says he's a woman. That sounds far less crazy to me. No, that word's not very PC though, but it is what it is. Is what it is. In 1 second, I lost my place again. Yeah, this is again, I'm not surprised that they're kind of going this route here, and this may be the thing that they start really talking about. Okay, one might exercise both of these rights toward a common goal transition, for instance, but neither can be collapsed into the other. I am put in mind of by Hold on. Let me skip down some. What does this freedom look like in practice? Let anyone change their sex. Let anyone change their gender. Let anyone change their sex again. Let trans girls play sports regardless of their sex status. If they excel, this means only that some girls are better at sports than others. Okay. If you have a dude, there's one dude, he's like 40 years old or whatever. He's playing like on a college team with some girls, or maybe it's a high school team. I think it's like a college team, but he's like old and he's towering over these girls and he looks scary and ridiculous. But that he's just not a girl that's better than other girls. It's silly. Do not out children to their parents. Do not force anyone to change their sex or their gender. Give everyone health care. The anti-trans movement has collected the public's rising awareness of the staggering injustice of the American healthcare system and directed it like a syringe full of air at a small population of children. The effect is to make it appear as if trans people do not want good health care or trustworthy providers, when the truth is that trans people face health disparities across the board, including higher reported of rates of disability, asthma, and heart disease. No single federal program would benefit trans people more than Medicare for all. It's not that we don't think that trans people don't want good health care. We just think that people are willing to give them bad health care to affirm their delusions rather than doing what is right for them and being like, you know what, this actually will not make you a woman and it will not make you a man. So we could not they referenced an article that the Free Press put out about a clinic in Missouri and how they were like, we're basically building the plane as it's flying as far as like the trans stuff goes. And that's obviously not good. And there are people who can go in, you can go to Planned Parenthood and get hormones pretty fast, and other places and get hormones pretty fast. And these people put you on a path to like chopping you up and all kinds of stuff very quickly because there's a lot of money in it. And if you're a slave to big pharma, you're going to be a client for life of the medical industry. So I think trans people want good health care. Their lives depend on it. Their future definitely depends on it. But especially as their immune system and other things start breaking down over the years. But however, sorry about that. However, that doesn't mean that there's not people cutting corners and doing harm for cash. And even if people aren't doing it just for cash, there are people who are ideologues who believe in a cause and want to push certain things because they're just, I don't know, why hardwired that way. People are human. Your doctors are still humans at the end of the day. Your doctors are still humans at the end of the day practicing medicine. So they may genuinely feel like some of the things that they're doing is the right thing, but that doesn't mean that people are receiving good health care. But these are practical options, not obligations. To make thoughtfulness a requirement of any universal right is to taper that right into an exclusive privilege. That trans kids, well, that's good there. If you you can't make people agree with all that stuff, so at least there's that line. That trans kids' access to care will, in most cases, be mediated by the parents or legal guardians is an inescapable fact of the way our society regards children, rightly or not. For now, parents must learn to treat their kids as what they are, human beings capable of freedom. Our children are capable of freedom, and they are very capable of being wrong. There's reasons why we do not allow children to go out there on their own and make all these decisions. Why, if at the end of the day parents don't take care of them, that they will be charged with neglect and all kinds of different stuff. They are not they can't sign contracts without legal guardians and all kinds of different stuff. Like, children are children for a reason. And again, if Johnny decided he was a walrus, we wouldn't be like, okay, it's time to chop up Johnny and feed him some worms. We wouldn't do that. The freedom of sex does not promise happiness, nor should it. It is a good right for the advocates to fight back against the liberal fixation on the health risks of sex changing care or the looming possibility of detransition. But it's also true that where there is freedom, there will always be regret. In fact, there cannot be regret without freedom. Regret is freedom projected into the past. So it is one thing to regret the outcome of a decision, but it is a very different thing to regret the freedom to decide, which most people would not trade for the world. If we are to recognize the rights of trans kids, we will also have to accept that, like us, they have a right to the hazards of their own free will. This does not mean shooting testosterone into every toddler who looks at a football, but if children are too young to consent to puberty blockers, then they are definitely, they said definitely here, definitely too young to consent to puberty, which is a drastic biological upheaval in its own right. Yet we let this happen every day and not without casualties. I am not speaking of suicide. I am speaking of the many opponents of trans rights who observe with horror that they too might have transitioned given the chance. So intensely did they hate being teenage girls. I do not know if they regret their biology today. I do suspect that they regret that they never got to choose it. Again, you can't choose that stuff, man. You can nothing's gonna change reality, man. So this hatred of self, it is a hatred of self, it's a hatred of order, it's a hatred of design. It's no shock that so many people who are of faith, and perhaps not enough people who are people of faith, find this ideology to be so toxic, because it is a disruption of order. I heard Ali Stuckley say that Christians are agents of order. And I'm like, that's a good way to put it, especially when you look at all these things that people want to do to disorder society. And this is definitely one of them. This is definitely one of them. A choice. The thought is impossible, yet we have no difficulty believing that 300,000 trans kids can choose to stop being trans. No, it's not about a choice to stop choosing being trans. It's just, you cannot transition. And people, dysphoria like that, if you usually let kids go through their phase of puberty, through the phase, and they go through puberty and stuff, they usually grow out of it. Maybe they'll just grow out, which I know people who had those questions and they grew out of it. Or I know people who are like, man, I'm really glad that I grew up as a tomboy in the 90s or the 80s or the early 2000s or something. Because if I was in the midst today, people would be trying to convince me that I was a boy. So it's not about you stop being trans, but trans is a word that we use, but nobody can transition. Nobody can transition. That's the issue. I don't like people being chopped up for delusion. Freedom is easy too. By the way, I got some kind of flag here that my Facebook, I don't know if it's back on or not. But it looks like my Facebook stopped working. So if you're watching on Facebook, I'm sorry. I hope I still have a Facebook page. I'm checking really quickly. What we cannot conceive is why they are making all this gender trouble in the first place. They do not owe us an explanation. They are busy taking charge of their own creation. They may not change the world, but they will certainly change themselves. Possibility, Butler once wrote, is not a luxury. It is as crucial as bread. We have not yet begun to understand the courage of the child who says she is a girl for the first time without any biological proof to back this up. This is especially true if she lives in one of the many states that are working to ensure that saying so is all that, trans kids like her will ever have. But she still speaks. The sentence, I am a girl, is performative speech in the classic sense. It performs an action. She is not only declaring her intent to exercise her freedom of sex in the future, she is, by uttering these words, already exercising it. She is working the weakness in the norm. She is not afraid of sex. She is against it. That is not nothing. There is, in fact, a very important population of Americans who do not want trans kids to exist. I am told they are small but growing. I don't want any trans kids to exist. Why? Like, in the sense that I don't want people to be at war with their bodies. I would prefer if everyone loved the skin that they were in and were comfortable with who they are and didn't have that sort of internal struggle. Why would that be wrong? But like, I wish that schizophrenia didn't exist. I'm not saying I want people who are struggling with those things to poof out of existence, or that we should go all eugenics and, I don't know, somehow find a way to preemptively see who's going to have these conditions in the future and just kind of off them. I'm not saying something like that. And that's not what anyone is saying, but why wouldn't we prefer that people be well, or not have those sort of struggles? That's not that should be a controversial thing. It should be a controversial thing. But man, there's people who say, I think I'm a boy, or I'm a boy, or I'm a girl, and they're just wrong. Kids can be so wrong about things, and I don't like that people just kind of pretend like they don't know that kids can't say and do crazy things. I don't like that. I'll tell this one story and then I'm going to wrap this up. I've told it before, but when I was a kid, my dad, we were watching X-Men. Well, no, we weren't watching X-Men probably at the time, but this was it during the height of like the X-Men cartoon and stuff, and we loved X-Men and the superpowers and all that stuff growing up. And my dad said, when we get to heaven, we're gonna have like powers like the X-Men and stuff. And I said, with my eyes full of bright hope, and I gasped and said, "Kill me now, Daddy, please." I begged my daddy to kill me so I could go to heaven. And at that point, he knew that he had made a mistake and had to explain some things, because kids don't get stuff. Kids don't get stuff. And sometimes you have to re-explain things, or if you don't explain things will just kind of grow in the kid's mind until you can correct them, or they can learn different or better or whatever. And the way that children's minds worked are very it's humorous, it's delightful, it's awe-inspiring, it's terrifying. So many things about a child's mind. But there's a reason why they need parents. There's a reason why they need parents, why they need guardianship, and they need someone to protect them, not to go along with every whim that they have. And simply saying that you feel like a girl, you are. How do you know that? Like, words have some kind of meaning. What does that mean? How do you know that? How can you validate that? If it's just a statement of like, well, I hate sex, they don't know all that. All this philosophical stuff that they're trying to push. And just say, no, you're not. Or you just ask how you know that. Because you're not. You don't know what it's like to be a girl, you're a boy. And go just squash it. Go from there if you can. But if someone literally does want to change your body and have the surgery and all those sorts of things, just still let them know that, hey, you're still a man. You just have boobs, fake ones, obviously. Let me see if that clip from that pastor who's running for governor, if I still have his clip. Let me see if I still have his clip. I don't have it queued up, but I think I have it in my files. Let me see. This is a very viral speech from someone who's running. I don't know if I downloaded it. Maybe I didn't download it. Gosh, it's for North Carolina governor, and he's like, you may get cut up, you may get doped up, but at the end of the day, you're a doped up, cut up such and such. It was and he was at a church talking about it, and it was true. Okay, I don't think maybe I can find it real quick on Twitter. Maybe I can find it real quick on Twitter. I already showed it to you guys, I think, on Thursday. So some of you already know what I'm talking about. And many of you might know what I'm talking about anyway. But I mean, I guess it's no different than kind of what I will say, but he said it in a very preacher. Here we go. Found it. So this will be the last statement. By the way, I don't know why it stopped on Facebook. It doesn't look like I got a violation or something, but the title might not be too friendly to some social medias. I don't expect to get monetized this episode.
Here's something else I'm not supposed to say. Ain't but two genders. Two genders. Ain't nothing but men and women. And I can already see WRL out there. They licking their pencils around, trying to write fierce as they can. Get every word of this here. Get every word of this. You can go to the doctor and get cut up. You can go down to the dress shop and get made up. You can go down there and get drugged up. But at the end of the day, you were just a drugged up, dressed up, made up, cut up, man or woman. You ain't changed what God put in you, that DNA. You can't transcend God's creation. I don't care how hard you try. The transgender movement in this country, if there's a movement in this country that is demonic and that is full of the spirit of Antichrist, it is the transgender movement.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, yep. It was just that line there. I mean, he said more, but and I don't know where this is at. There's it's a room amongst many black people, and but I mentioned, because they're really coming after him hard and lying about stuff that he said in the media, which we talked about that last week. But the sorts of things that he's saying in this clip are things that resonate beyond white evangelicals. People always talk about the Christian nationalists and the particularly white ones. This would resonate across both sides of the aisle, whether they vote Democrat or Republican. You can't change how God made you, but people are darn well trying. They're darn well trying. Anyway, thank you guys for watching and viewing today. There's some things I didn't have time to get to today, but that we will address tomorrow. There was an interview with Nancy Mace and George Stephanopoulos that about Trump, and he tried to kind of shame her, like, how could you support Trump after knowing that what the courts decided with Jean Carroll. And she's like, you're trying to shame me. And people have been trying to shame me all my life, and I'm a rape victim, and you're trying to shame me. He's like, I'm not trying to shame you. She's like, yes, you are. But he is clearly trying to shame her. But people are just kind of pointing out, like, bro, you work for the Clintons. So I guess you do what you got to do, huh, bro? But I don't want to say too much about Miss Carroll since she's suing people and winning millions and millions of dollars. But I'm gonna play some clips of her tomorrow, and we can just let them speak for themselves. The clips speak for themselves. Okay. So anyway, thank you guys. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It does cost a stream, run my website, all that stuff. If you would like to check out different merch, we got merch there as well, and I do have books and so on. You guys can read and check out as well. I do want to say, if you're watching the YouTube, is it doing the notifications for some people? Make sure that you guys have the notification bell clicked, or that you're even still subscribed. I know some people said that they had been unsubscribed and stuff, so go ahead and just make sure that you're subscribed and your notification bells are hit. And otherwise I'll be here at 4. I was a little late today, but I'll be here unless, otherwise notified. I'll let you guys know if I'm on vacay or something like that. But make sure that you guys do go to the website and drop in your email on the email list. So go to blacktnews.com and do that. I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless.